We're entering this age of reconciliation within our Indigenous communities, and what we're seeing in the national media is a critique of the one site across Canada where Indigenous women can receive culturally appropriate programming.
Tonight, after the transfer of one high-profile inmate, healing lodges are put under scrutiny, but at what cost?
We are Ganyangeha people with a right from our community to do what we're doing. Our people have said it's okay, and that's all we need to worry about.
And the Mohawks stand strong against Canada's attempts to regulate the recreational marijuana market.
Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen. Winnipeg police are investigating the death of a 33-year-old woman whose body was found at a recycling facility last week.
While homicide investigators work to piece together what happened and who is responsible, her parents spoke about the shock of their daughter being the latest statistic.
Mary Madeline Yellowback's lifeless body was found Friday night at a recycling depot in Winnipeg. She is from the God's Lake First Nation in northern Manitoba, a remote flying community over 500 kilometers north of Winnipeg. She was in Winnipeg for medical appointments. Police say she was last seen downtown.
The investigation is continuing by members of our homicide unit.
Indigenous leaders and family members held a press conference to show support for her family. MKO Missing and Murdered Women and Girls Liaison Hilda Anderson-Piers says,
I just want the community to know how loved and valued our Indigenous sisters are in our community and how we deserve, to live a life where we feel safe and where we're honored. And as a community, we mourn the loss of one of our sisters, Mary Yellowback.
Michelle Audette is a commissioner with the National Inquiry for Murdered and Missing Women and Girls.
Why? Why it's still happening every week? Every 2 weeks we meet across Canada to receive the truth of the families, to receive the truth of people that has that passion, knowledge, or frustration.
Yellowback's parents, Rex and Hagar Ross, are pleading for answers.
We need closure to this tragedy that we encountered through my daughter. I never realized that it will be me. It will be me that would lose a daughter through this tragic event of being destroyed, her life being cut short.
Winnipeg police are asking anyone with information to come forward. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It's the second day for hearings in Winnipeg for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Today, commissioners heard about the physical and mental effect the child welfare system has on families, with some saying the effects are similar to those of residential schools and the 60s scoop. Here's Brittany Hobson.
Dr. Amy Bombay has spent her life studying Aboriginal mental health and well-being. Much of her research is about the effects of residential schools and the 60s scoop. On Tuesday, she told the National Inquiry there is a connection between children in care and residential school survivors.
A lot of people's affected by the child welfare system. Their families were affected by the residential school system.
She says years of child apprehensions, whether through residential schools, the 60s scoop, or the child welfare system, have resulted in mental health issues being passed on through generations.
On reserve, it was about 25% of adults who had at least 2 generations who attended residential school. And so I think if we continued to look at those in those families were they affected also by the 60s scoop and then also by subsequent child welfare, I think we would see those things.
Dr. Bombay related poor mental health to the loss of culture and identity. Manitoba's First Nations family advocate has seen the effects of this firsthand.
Each generation, more and more of our identity is stripped from us in our family. And then to have that in your family background and then to lose your own children, the resilience, I think, is further lessened along the way. And so those are things that,
She says Indigenous women carry many intergenerational traumas with them, and the current child welfare system isn't designed to recognize this.
And our trauma and tragedy is really layered. You know, you can't have something that would address just one element of a mainstream person. You know, all of us have, you know, addictions in our family, violence in our family, diabetes in our family, potentially HIV in our family, homelessness in our family, mental health issues in our family.
Morgan recommended more culturally appropriate services should be in place for mothers dealing with trauma. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
On Thursday, communities across Canada will come together for the annual Sisters in Spirit Vigil to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. One mother in southern Alberta is walking nearly 200 kilometers to attend the vigil in Calgary, and she's walking alone. Tamara Pimentel has her story.
Oh, here we go. For all the years that we walked on this road.
During the first big snowfall of the season, Stephanie English steps out onto the highway near her home of Piikani First Nation and begins a 40-hour walk north to Calgary. It's a 200-kilometer walk her daughters Allison Moses and Joey English had planned to do with her, but she walks alone.
My girls and I have been through hard times in this kind of weather. I feel them walking with me. Just kind of going back on the memories of what we were supposed to do together. But we're still doing it together.
English lost Allison to suicide in 2015. A year later, Joey's body was found dismembered in various locations across Calgary. According to the medical examiner, she died of an overdose before her body was dismembered. Joshua Weiss was sentenced to 18 months in jail plus 3 years probation for offering an indignity to human remains.
I walk because my daughter is still buried in the landfill. I walk because I grieve really hard. This is something that we wanted to do for some time now.
Walking down the busy highway with her mother driving nearby, English says starting in Piikani brings Indigenous issues off reserve and into the public.
I just hope for change. You know, if we can only one day work together and become a stronger nation, you know, I really believe that a lot of good change will come in.
English will keep walking with no stops until she reaches Calgary on Thursday. She'll unite with the annual Sisters in Spirit Vigil, honoring her daughters while fulfilling their dream. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, near the Piikani First Nation.
We want to hear what you think. Here's how to contact us to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news.
We have to take a quick break.
But first, an all-new season of Face to Face kicks off tonight. Our guest is Liberal MP Robert Falcon-Ouellette. We discuss the proposed Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, his controversial comments on Gerald Stanley, and Romeo Sagnash's accusations that Justin Trudeau doesn't give an F about Indigenous rights.
I think the government hasn't cared for 150 years. In fact, not only have they not cared, they've actually been actively trying to destroy Indigenous peoples and their cultures for 150 years. And in this case, now we've changed direction, 180, and we have a prime minister who's trying to do something completely different.
Sunny skies and a high of 15 for Halifax, 18 with rain for Fredericton, 10 under the sun in Happy Valley Goose Bay, snow and +7 for Nain, 14 for Quebec City and Saguenay, 16 under the sun in Montreal, 23 above under the sun for London and Sarnia, 25 and sunny in Windsor, 13 with rain in Thunder Bay, 14 and rain in Wawa. In northern Manitoba, 0 with snow for Puckatawagan, plus 6 for Norway House and God's Lake, 6 with snow for Winnipeg and Gimli, 2 and snow in Brandon. In Saskatchewan, 2 with snow and rain mixed in Swift Current and Regina, plus 4 for Saskatoon, minus 2 and snow for Uranium City and Stony Rapids.
Hello and welcome back. Indigenous healing lodges came under scrutiny this past week. Many Canadians were outraged by news that a woman who murdered a young girl in Ontario had been transferred to one months ago. It's since been described as everything from a health spa to a vacation resort. But as Todd Lamourand reports, the Elizabeth Fry Society says that's not so.
Cassandra Churcher feels the need to set straight a lot of misconceptions about the Okimau-Ochi Healing Lodge, especially that it is easy time in an unsecured setting.
Is that it is a Correctional Service of Canada prison. It still has all of the harmful and invasive practices like strip searching, the practice of segregation. There's still medium security classifications, minimum security classifications, supervisions, and protocols that you would find at every other women's prison in Canada.
She's responding to last week when it was learned that Terry Lynn McClintock has been serving her time for several months at Okimau-Ochi. She's serving a life sentence in the murder of 8-year-old Tori Stafford. The Conservatives went after the government, often commenting about the lodge.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister knows he's playing games with words. Tori Stafford's killer was behind bars and behind razor wire. Now she's living in a condo.
Freeland McClintock went from behind bars to a lodge where single and family residential units with bathrooms, a bedroom, a kitchenette, and an eating area, and a living room exist. That's where she's at right now, not behind bars.
Comments on Michelle Rempel's Facebook page were mostly criticisms of Trudeau or about reinstating the death penalty, but a few questioned the living conditions. One said, the Healing Lodge description sounds more like a Best Western. A few others, their existence. Healing lodges are ridiculous anyways. They should all be closed. Churcher finds these types of discussions harmful.
We're entering this age of reconciliation within our Indigenous communities, and what we're seeing in the national media is a critique of the one site across Canada where Indigenous women can receive culturally appropriate programming.
McClintock once self-identified as a non-status Indian, according to a 2012 Canadian press story. But Churcher would not comment on whether or not she belongs at Okimau-Ochi, and says all women would benefit regardless of their crimes.
Absolutely, and again, eventually all people who are incarcerated will be reintegrated. That's the nature of the legislation in our country. So as a Canadian public, we would want to make sure that they have access to whatever programs they need.
On Tuesday morning, Conservative MP Candace Bergen introduced a motion to debate McClintock's transfer. Again, the Conservative opposition questioned why McClintock was doing time in a healing lodge.
So why is she being given a cushy transfer to a healing lodge with no fence?
Karen McCrimmon, Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety, spent much of her speech defending Okimau-Ochi's safety as a medium security prison.
I urge my colleagues across the aisle to stop denigrating healing lodges. They are an important element of our correctional system, and they have a record of successfully holding inmates accountable for the most serious of crimes.
Conservative MPs plan to support and attend a rally planned on Parliament Hill on November 2nd. Todd Lamourand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Flames filled the sky of Yellowknife early this morning. An apartment complex was destroyed in a blaze. But as our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs explains, many of the residents who lost everything already had very little.
This is the scene dozens of families awoke to this morning at YWCA's Brock Hill Transitional Housing. The fire spread rapidly, leaving many young families without a home, including the Nitsizas.
And then I just got panicked, didn't bother taking anything what was in my place. I just solely concentrated on getting my daughter out of there.
I do miss our home. Laverna and her 10-year-old daughter, Talena, left and got a room at the hotel Laverna works at.
That's when I told my daughter, then we're just going to go check. We're going to check how bad is our place. So we went there, and I saw that the roof above my apartment caved in, and there was a bunch of water and flames.
Now, this is all that remains of the place they once called home.
They said that I was able to get a one-bedroom place. So I got all my furniture and everything, and then I put it inside there, and then I was actually relieved to have a place to call home. But now it's no longer a home.
It was also the home of Samantha Janes, who was not ready to be interviewed on camera.
Well, me and my 3-year-old were sleeping, and my boyfriend heard the alarm going off. He thought it was another false alarm because it happens here all the time. And I got up, I panicked, walked out into the hallway, and I could smell smoke, and I knew right then and there that it wasn't a false alarm.
Jane soon realized her home was in danger.
We thought our apartment was fine until we went to the front of the building, and black smoke was coming out of our bedroom window, and then within minutes.
Fortunately, all 33 families escaped the building safely. This afternoon, the YWCA posted online saying everyone has been rehoused in temporary locations for the time being. But for those like Nitsiza and Janes, it's been one emotional day.
I've been crying since I heard that my place was on fire. I've been crying since 8.
Charlotte Mort Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Cannabis has become a lucrative business for some Ontario First Nations, even ahead of it being legal on October 17th. And these business owners say they plan to keep it that way. So when it comes to the new cannabis regulations, members of the Tyendinaga Mohawk community say the province has no jurisdiction. Here's Annette Francis with more.
Robert Fisher has been working at the paw shop in Tyendinaga since it opened last spring. It is one of over 50 dispensaries in the Mohawk community.
The cigarette industry, the gas industry, and the marijuana industry, just like a domino effect. You know, the gas was like the roots of us having economic independence. The cigarettes was taken sprout, and now this is full bloom.
Cannabis will be legal in Canada on October 17th. According to the province of Ontario's new pot law, the Ontario Cannabis Store website will be the only legal option for purchasing recreational cannabis. But the provincial laws don't apply here, says Fisher.
We are Ganyangeha people with a right from our community to do what we're doing. Our people have said it's okay, and that's all we need to worry about. We sit here under the two-row wampum agreement with the Canadians, and so far they're not breaching that. If they try to breach that and try to impose their way on us, I think we'll stand firm.
Community member Seth Lafort couldn't agree more about his people's sovereignty. His shop on Six Nations territory was raided last year. Lafort was charged with possession of marijuana for the purpose of trafficking.
So I'm raising a constitutional challenge because I believe that they've breached my rights and the rights of the people to make medicine and to use the plants in accordance with our tradition, and to heal people and to help. And they don't have the right to do that, and they don't have the right to do that on our land.
Jamie Kunkel now has store franchises in other provinces. According to him, the industry means good business for the whole community.
Obviously, economical growth, tourism. We have a lot more traffic. All of the businesses, I guess, that aren't cannabis related also. So people come to get their cannabis at the same time while they're here. They buy their cigarettes, they fill up with gas, whatever, chips, snacks, pops. Every one of those businesses will have picked up as well. Jobs, the tourism industry.
According to Fisher, Tyendinaga is working on putting its own regulations in place. As for Lafort's case, it's still undecided. He'll be back in court in February. What Premier Rob Ford plans to do about Mohawk sovereignty is unknown at the moment. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Tyendinaga, Mohawk Territory.
Time for a quick break after a look at the rest of tomorrow's weather.
But here first is a look at what's coming up on APTN In Focus tomorrow. A brand new season of In Focus is coming up this Wednesday. I'm your new host, Melissa Ridgen, and to kick things off, we're putting future Indigenous leaders in focus. What questions do you have for visionaries of the next generation? Tweet them to me at APTN In Focus and join us Wednesday, October 3rd at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Sunny skies for northern Alberta, +7 in Grand Prairie, 4 in Peace River, +3 in Medicine Hat, 6 under the sun for Edmonton and Red Deer. On the west coast, 12 and sunny for Campbell River and Victoria, 11 and some rain for Bella Coola, 8 and sunny in Dease Lake, +10 under the sun for Smithers. In the Yukon, sunny skies, 8 above for Mayo and Whitehorse, 1 degree warmer in Beaver Creek, 0 in Fort Simpson with sun, 0 in Wrigley with snow, +1 and sunny in Norman Wells, -7 with sun for Sax Harbor, 1 degree warmer in Paulatuck, -2 in Inuvik, 0 for Arviette, Whale Cove, and Chesterfield, snow all around, -9 for Cambridge Bay, +2 for Iqaluit, -7 in Resolute. Welcome back. The City of Saskatoon opened a new bridge today, and it's also a bridge towards reconciliation because it's named in honor of Treaty 6 territory. Our Amber Bernard reports.
Hundreds of people helped the City of Saskatoon celebrate the grand opening of the Chief Mistawasis Bridge today. The bridge commemorates the historical and respected Chief Mistawasis, who signed Treaty Number 6 in 1876. City officials say this is an important step towards reconciliation and community building.
It was an opportunity for our city to shine, to respond to the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action number 79. The name Chief Mistawasis will forever be part of Saskatoon's future, and we can all be very proud of that.
One of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee's calls to action requests the commemoration of Indigenous history and values, something the city says they're actively working on. Others say Saskatoon needs to do much more than name a bridge, but they also believe this is a good step forward.
It's a celebration of the naming, and it's a big part of reconciliation and the calls to action, but it's also a reminder of how much farther we have to go. And to see all of these children here today, I mean, that's what we need. We need our children and our youth to carry the messages forward.
Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
It's almost time to bring out our sashes to use as the scarves. Nice to see people bundled up. Well, that's all the news we have for you tonight. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Dennis Ward, not ready for a scarf just yet. Tune in face to face. It's up next. Have a great night.